Today, I'm going to be explaining the formal analysis comparative study. So, this is what we've been leading up to. So, in order to complete this, you are going to need your graphic organizer. You will have a copy of this in your Google Classroom. So, you will make a copy and then you will edit this. Do not make any changes to the design of this Google slide presentation. Okay, so on the front slide, you are going to add your name and block next to where it says name and block. This slide is just here for informational purposes. You are going to have to complete this comparative study by October 5th or 6th, depending on when your class is taking place. Please ignore that September 20th date on this PowerPoint slide. The class enrollment codes, though, are correct. Those will also be posted in your individual Google Classrooms. You will upload this to the formal analysis assignment on turnitin.com. Please delete this slide after you have enrolled in the class. You will not need it anymore, so please don't submit it on your final presentation. You're also going to delete this slide. So you can just go over to the left-hand side, hit the delete button, and it will disappear. But this has your success criteria. So in this, you are going to use font size Arial 12. Yes, I'm being very specific about font size. It is important. We're learning how to properly lay out a formal analysis slide for IB. So the font size needs to be Arial 12. It is set as the default on this presentation, so don't go changing it. You have to use complete sentences and paragraphs. This is not the time for bullet points. This is not the time for sentence fragments or incomplete thoughts. Please make sure that you are writing this as you would a paper in your English or history classes. You are going to evaluate the two paintings, use the Elements and Principles graphic organizer, which you should have already completed. Then you're going to take that information and use it to create the formal analysis for each section. After evaluating the piece alone, you are going to compare the elements and principles, which are the formal elements of each painting, to one another. You need to identify 4 similarities and 4 differences related to the formal elements of each piece. Please remember that all work and analysis must be your own. If it comes back with more than a 30% match on material, we will have to have a discussion about plagiarism and you may not receive credit for the project. You are going to have to find a minimum of 4 sources. You will need 2 for each piece of artwork, and it needs to be done in MLA format. Please do not lose points on this. It is really important. I will talk about it a little bit more here in a moment. And you have to use this slide deck in your submission. Do not change or crop pictures, and do not change the slides. So the first one is the formal analysis of Storm on the Sea of Galilee by Rembrandt. You are going to go in and delete the text that I have placed in the box on the center right part of this slide, and you will type your own information. You can only use that 12-point Arial font, and you are going to be discussing the elements and principles on this slide. Make sure you use those full sentences and paragraphs. Statements need to be substantial. It shouldn't just say, "This piece has line." That is a weak and vague statement and will be considered minimal achievement. Also, do not write "the first thing I noticed," or "the first thing I saw," or any version of "I believe." Remember, these are statements of fact. They are not opinion. On this slide, you only need to address 5 of the elements or principles. There are way more than 5. So pick 5 that you feel good and strong about to address on this slide. When you write your sentences, your elements and principles must be bolded. So at the bottom, I've given you an example. So it says, one of the first things I noticed about this piece was how rough it appeared in texture. The word texture is bolded, and that is because it is an element or principle. Anytime you use an element or principle in a sentence, you should bold it. This does 2 things. Number 1, it calls out the element or principle. Number 2, it lets me know that you understand what an element or principle is. Okay? So you can see there's several instances here where the word texture is repeated. That's fine. I love having multiple sentences about each element or principle. Just make sure every time you're using that word texture, it's bolded. The last thing that you are going to need to do on this slide is to fill in some of the important biographical information on the left-hand side. You will see I've given you the title of the piece and the artist name. Below that, you have to tell me the date that it was created, the size of the piece, this can be in centimeters or inches, the medium, and so that means what is this? Is this a painting? Is it a sculpture? If it's a painting, what kind of painting is it? Is it acrylic? Is it oil? Is it mixed media? So tell me what the medium is, and you need to also tell me where the painting is currently located. This is important information for the pieces that we are looking at, and this is proper format. So please do not forget to look that up. On this slide, you're going to use arrows and text boxes to call out specific information. Again, be specific. Like I've been saying in class, bash me over the head with the information. I want you to pretend like I have never heard this info before. I don't know the storm on the Sea of Galilee, so you have to explain it to me like I have never seen it. It should not be a copy and a paste from the previous slide. You need to either analyze different elements and principles or restate your sentences in a way that makes it new information. Okay? You have to have 5 callouts. So you should have 5 different arrows and 5 different text boxes. You are going to use Arial font 12, and the arrows should be red and 8 points thick. I have provided you with 1 arrow already. You can copy and paste that arrow about the slide if you want, so you know that it's exactly 8 points thick and it's red. You should point that arrow towards the information you are talking about. I've given you an example of the sort of sentence that I am expecting from you guys. Now, clearly, this sentence does not match this piece. I wasn't about to take away anyone's idea, so I pulled a statement from a different piece of artwork. But again, I'm going to read it for you just so you have an idea. So Picasso's use of line here is very bold and gestural, as if it was made quickly. His use of line emphasizes the form of the woman, drawing the viewer's eye around the edges of her. So again, it's specific, it talks about multiple things, and it is a well thought out and constructed set of sentences. These are your goals, and I need 5 of them for this piece. So 5 arrows, 5 elements or principles that are well thought out. You're going to repeat that whole process for the raft of the Medusa. So again, you are needing 5 elements and principles on this section. You are going to bold them. You are going to find that biographical information, so the date it was created, the size, the medium, and where it was currently located. You will do the same here as you did with the storm on the Sea of Galilee, okay? 5 callouts, red arrows, 8 points thick, size 12, Arial font. This is where it starts to get interesting. So here you're going to compare and contrast. Okay, compare and contrast similarities and differences. The first paragraph should be 4 similarities, and they need to be formal elements. You cannot tell me both of these paintings have boats in them. That's not a formal element. Okay, you can say something along the lines of, both of these artists use a lot of red in their composition, and red is a strong, warm color. That is a similarity. Okay, that's not true of either of these pieces. I was just making an example. So use your similarities wisely. Look at those formal elements. Do the artists use line the same? Is there the same sort of emphasis? Is there the same sort of movement? Is there the same color palette? Okay, it is really important that you make sure what you are stating is a similarity or a difference. Don't confuse the two. I have had lots of students in the past who have told me and put things in the similarities section that were actually differences. So if they're alike, it goes in the similarities section. If they're different, it goes in the differences paragraph. So again, I'm looking for a minimum of 4 similarities. If you do more than 4, awesome. I will not be sad about that. If you do less than 4, that will negatively impact your grade, of course. And again, you're going to use a 12-point font. And you can just erase the text that I have put in this text box. Now, let's talk about that works cited. This needs to be MLA citation. You have to have 4, 2 for each piece of artwork. You know that biographical information I told you needed to find on both of those pieces? That's important, and that needs to come from a source. So you are going to cite the sources that you found that information. So the date created, where it is, what's the medium. That is important information. The most important aspect besides the formatting is that you put your citations in alpha order. So you need to make sure that when you are doing this, this is in alphabetical order. Do not mess that up. That is the one spot where I commonly see students mess this up, is that they put them in whatever order they find them. Do not just copy and paste a link to a source. That is not a proper citation. There are lots of citation machines out there that can help you properly cite your sources in MLA. If you need some help with that, again, schedule in office hours. As always, once you have finished this, please upload it to the turnitin.com assignment. That is how I will be assessing these. That helps me check for plagiarism. You can also submit it through the Google Classroom, but turnitin.com is where I am going to be looking for this particular assignment. Please make sure you submit it to turnitin.com, okay? And make sure you are joining the right class for Turnitin. If you have any questions, please send me an email. Schedule an office hours appointment with me. I would happily talk about this with you guys at length and clear up any misunderstandings you may have.